Welcome to the live stream, Arm Wrestling fans. We have Paul Linn with us. Paul, I feel like I'm literally stealing your wisdom that was supposed to be for Neil Pickup's fix show this Sunday, and we're going to
Ah,
discuss the same things here.
listen, man, time is of the essence. I also have a video getting ready. It's uploading right now. Pretty, you'd be proud of me. I'm making videos now. I only make them when I have to. I think that's the problem.
Yeah. So, how many times, for how long was it a pin this time? Every time, sometimes it's a pin for 5 minutes,
It's always
sometimes
a
it's.
pin. It's always a pin. I put a target on myself. Now everything's over scrutinized. It's my own fault. I don't care. Yeah.
So, since you're the guest, can you do a little recap of what the story about East versus West split is so far from your perspective? Because you are one of the insiders who know more than almost
So
all of us.
here's what I'm going to do. It's going to be real easy. I'm going to direct everyone to Artem Taranenko's and Travis's podcast for his Travis's perspective on the actual details. Okay, but I think we all know that there was some type of business related, maybe personal differences related to the East versus West current owners and the previous owner. And it came to a head after that event in said meeting that would be discussed in Travis's and Angus podcast. So go ahead and look at that most recent one. You can get Travis's perspective on all the details. I was in the meeting. I'm not. It was a closed door meeting. I'm gonna keep it closed door, like as far as the details. But what has really come out is all in that podcast. So Angan Terzi has effectively put in his resignation. We, as the arm wrestling community, have approached it several different ways. Most of the Westerners have not chosen a side per se, and are moving forward with the hopes of unity. And we all behind the scenes are pushing towards that. I personally, as of late, am becoming more and more optimistic as every day goes by. I don't know what that resolution will look like. I don't know what compromises will need to be made, but we're at an impasse here where, in order to keep arm wrestling moving in the right direction, we have to keep unity. And in order to keep unity, it's going to have to be compromises. There's going to have to be ego swallowing. There's going to have to be discussions, open lines of communication. There may have to be tough changes. Who knows? We don't know what that looks like, but we're all keeping the faith and trying to move forward and correct things. Over the past however many days here since Saturday has passed, there's been a lot of assumptions made. Justin Bishop made a good video. You take a look at that about the assumptions, telling everybody calm down, let the dust settle until the information comes out. So unfortunately, when the arm wrestling community is so tight and we have so many good platforms that are putting out consistent content, when the facts are not out there, it forces people to come to assumptions. Do my best within my purview to keep things factual, which is also why I don't want to comment too much on things that I know may be hearsay until I know them to be completely facts. So I've heard a lot of information. I've heard a lot of different perspectives. There are 100% two perspectives on this. But ultimately, I think both parties are right and both parties are wrong. I want to be very, very clear. I am loyal to both Angan and Robert because I trust both Angan and Robert. So like they have if you got two brothers and your two brothers get into a fight, you don't start beating one of your brothers up. You break the freaking fight up. So that's where we're at.
I never, Paul. I never break fights up. Like literally, when I see a fight, maybe when I was in school, when I'm on a street, two guys are fighting, and I absolutely hate it when people try to interfere, try to
No, no,
dispute
no,
the
no, no.
ref.
Hold on. Two strangers fighting and your brothers fighting are two different things. I like a good
even
fight like
even
anybody
even
else.
yeah, even if those two guys are your friends or something, my logic behind that is they both are mature grown men, they've decided to fight, let them fight, we'll see who the winner is.
Right. Well, look, listen, far be it from me to see two strangers fighting and assume that the one getting beat up isn't the one that's wrong. So, so let it play out and stay in your own lane. But if your brothers are fighting, you break your brothers up, right? Especially if it's getting out of hand.
Yeah. In the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned that since it was a closed door meeting, you're going to let it stay that way. But I don't think it is that anymore because Denis Siplenkov has talked about it. Engin himself has talked about it. I'll read the text to you. Maybe you haven't read it. So Engin was waiting for a call from Robert at about 3 a.m. in the morning after the event ended, and he got a call about 8 a.m. from an athlete who was breathing fire, and he told me that there was an athletes meeting after the event finished. I am assuming it could have been Hermes Gasparini. Maybe you know better. So whoever that athlete was,
Honestly, there were enough people in that room who were probably uncomfortable that it could have. I can't make an assumption, but it could have been
okay,
multiple people.
yeah. So that athlete told Engin that there was a certain athlete and his wife. They were in full control of the meeting and they were against me. So obviously he's talking about Devon and his wife Jody. Some athletes confronted and it was an unpleasant moment for the athletes. An athlete being in control and charge of organization was not welcomed by many athletes, and it was the main reason for all those times that I wanted to leave the organization. So Engin wanted to leave the organization because Devon was having too much control over it. And recently I saw Denis Siplenkov's video on Body Mania channel. It was uploaded less than 10 hours ago maybe. And he was saying that now someone's our favorite not someone's our favorite arm wrestler is the co-owner of East versus West arm wrestling. This is what Dennis said, and he was laughing about it. Obviously he was talking about Devon Larrett. So is there anything that is left for all of us to know? Is there anything that is still
Well,
private? I think all of
I
it is
think
out now.
I think we have to, like, unless we're looking at some form of signed contracts, or unless like one of the owners says that, we can't assume that to be anything other than hearsay. Maybe it's solid hearsay. I don't know, but that's not something privy to that information, and I can't confirm or deny it. So
Whenever someone says he cannot confirm or deny, it always means that he's confirming that. I've always seen that.
Oh, well, not always. It depends on the situation.
Like maybe like 90% of the times I've seen that.
I'm not the guy. I've seen no contracts, and until that moment of me walking in that room, I didn't know there was more than one. There was more than one owner. So that was news. That more than one owner was news to me.
Yeah. And another question, Paul. I am and someone was mentioning more stuff like that. Maybe Brian Shaw is also somehow involved. I'd be surprised. Guys, I'll even say this directly to Devon's face, Robert's face. Do not trust Brian Shaw in this matter. Brian Shaw is going to be another Larry Wheels. He will love arm wrestling, he'll get a ton of views from arm wrestling, and then he'll quit. I can tell you right now, and I've been saying that from day one. Brian Shaw is never going to become the number one arm wrestler in the world. You can literally
Well,
see that.
let's stay positive on that one, because
And
if there is a chance that Brian does, because Brian has been nothing, like, he has given off a complete different vibe than Larry in
yeah,
my experience with him. He
but the
is
problem,
very much committed to the training, which we never saw Larry really commit to the training. So that's a really good
Paul,
sign.
Larry hired professional coaches. He was being trained by, I
What does
think,
that mean?
Yanis Omolitz. He was
What
doing
is
whatever they were telling him to do.
Well, where's all the videos of him doing all this arm wrestling specific stuff? Because I seen the Brian Shaw ones. I
He's
don't see
uploaded.
Larry. I didn't see
Come on.
Larry every day doing 6 different handles.
Yeah. But the problem is with these guys, they are world champion athletes. Brian Shaw is literally 4 times world's strongest man. And I think
Mhm.
my psychology says when they switch to a different sport and they start losing because they've never really lost in their own sport. I'm
Well,
assuming that
let's also look at the variables here. Larry Wheel's very young, and he still had aspirations in the strength sport world. And where Brian Shaw is retired,
retired.
and he has committed enough to change his body composition in preparation for arm wrestling. These are all good signs. And arm wrestling is obviously an age-friendly sport, where I do believe that even the current state right now, he is very committed to it. And I think we should ride that out. And then let's look at the third variable, really how he's being handled and which directions he's being put and which matches he's being given. Like, Larry was fed to the wolves like 6 times. Like, I don't know if I was Larry, if I could have handled any of that, you know? You're on your own platform and you're getting fed to the wolves.
So Paul Engin also used to say he was also giving politically correct statements about Brian Shaw, about Larry Wheels initially. Then recently, about maybe less than 2 weeks ago, we heard Engin say about Brian that Brian isn't going to do anything. He was like, I don't think Brian is going to be top 10. Brian won't do anything in arm wrestling. So was that because of some animosity towards Brian? He already knew that he's also going to try to partner up something or try to take East versus West to Shaw Classic
I
or something like that.
I have no reason to think that at all. I don't think that nothing out there informationally would lead me to believe that in any way, shape, or form. I would assume that maybe was just looking at, his age, his experience level, and then the level of super heavyweight arm wrestling. Because also, like I think we put unfair pressure on Brian. I think we put unfair pressure on Larry. Like, why do we expect these guys to be top 20? Like the super heavyweights, the top 20 in the world are super freak, huge monstrosity weirdos. All of them. Every one of those top 20. So, like, I mean, you got to crawl before you walk. And we immediately see this 6'9", like giant, like with great like genetics. And we say, okay, this guy can do whatever he wants. And maybe he can, but I also am a believer it's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of steps to get there. So I think we should just not rush it. And I could understand why there would be people who would think that, hey, maybe this is an insurmountable mountain. I mean, look at Levon, dude. We watched Hermes improve his lifts by like 20%. And then you see Levon and you're like, well, Levon either was already that much stronger than him or he improved his lifts by 25% from an already untouchable level. So you look at that guy and you say, well, how the heck can anybody? That's kind of what I took away from that match. Well, like Levon is going to give over the title when he retires.
Paul, I would have agreed with your statement about Larry Wheels when you said that we are putting too much pressure on these guys. But Brian is literally from day one himself talking about Levan Saginashvili, that
I know.
Levan is the goal. He's writing stuff on his table, Levan
I
Saginashvili.
love it.
So
I
I'm
love
not the
it.
one who's putting pressure on him. He's the
Oh,
one
right.
who's
I
doing
love
that.
it. I love it. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, listen, if you're that guy, you probably think with a championship mindset and you put that end goal up there, and I think he sat with Todd Hutchings and they wrote out some stuff and, maybe that was part of it. I don't know. But like, look, ultimately, whether anyone's genetic capacity will allow for them ever to be number one in the world, if you get into a sport competitively, why would you not have that as your final goal? Now, whether you choose to vocalize it is another thing, but we all should be shooting for that stuff. So, yeah, and I would also think that the public in general and the layman would probably also put that assumption on Brian too. Like, well, why couldn't he? Especially if it's a loose arm wrestling fan who doesn't really get it.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say, so far I've not seen anything from Brian that leads me to believe he can ever be like top 5 in the world. Let's see.
That's fair.
Pradeep,
That's fair. But
please.
I still want to see the 5-year journey, and you can probably make a lot of videos along the way.
Yeah,
So let's not
which
discourage them. You know what I'm saying?
which I'm doing right now, and about the views too, like the amount of views that Larry was generating around arm wrestling, Brian is not doing anything comparable to that.
Well, there's like, things become hot and cold in arm wrestling. And when Larry got involved, we were like, wasn't that right around like COVID time? And everybody was really into social media. And, it was a really hot time, and, things will happen. Like things are happening right now in the sport. Like I posted a video about a video about making a video on the fix. And my channel has not that many subscribers, and somehow it's got like 12,000 views. It's because YouTube has, probably figured out the algorithm that everybody wants to hear about this conflict with East versus West. And I think Larry was like that first dude to come in, and that algorithm was favorable to anything Larry Wheels for quite some time. And I think Brian Shaw is kind of on the back end of that wave. Audio out. Your audio's out.
I think we diverted
There,
a lot
there
from
it
the
is.
topic. Let's get back to it. So East versus West. Maybe I'm still pretty immature about this subject, but my question is, when you're already trying to defame someone, why would you refrain yourself from taking his name. Engin is saying that a certain athlete and his wife. Now Hermes Gasparini is uploading a video. He's also saying the same words. A certain athlete and his wife. So I can get it in some countries, like for example in your country USA, you can get sued for defamation and stuff like that, but that kind of stuff is not happening in arm wrestling. If you want to say something negative about Devon or his wife, why would you talk in riddles? Like what's the point here? Engin, when he talks about East versus West, he's calling it a flower shop. When he talks about
Yeah.
Robert Baxter, he's calling him the main guy. What is going on?
Well,
Like what am I
both
missing
of
here?
those gentlemen quite often post and make videos in Nostradamus level quatrains. You know, like Devin is always posting parables. You know, and I think everything means something. And I also think that sometimes the fans, especially when they don't know what's going on, the viewers, you know, they probably enjoy the process of figuring things out. So, like, it could be a slander thing. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. But I think both of them are kind of doing it and they're kind of dancing around it. You know, uh, I think sometimes people are probably leery about coming out, and you know, it's surprising to me because in the past, Angan has really, you know, he's showing more restraint in this one, in this situation than, you know, to me, it's almost out of character the level of restraint he's showing, especially because of the assumptions that were jumped to early on. Because a lot of
Right.
stuff early on that went out was just not the case, you know. So I think it's progress. I think it's good.
Would you like to answer this question?
Mm. What is your take on having athletes as an owner? Is this fine? I Number one, my initial knee jerk reaction would be that it presents an opportunity for a conflict of interest. However, I am not sure if um, other sports don't do similar things. So I do know, like, you know, you go into boxing in the fight world, you got the money team, Floyd Mayweather. They basically make their own matches. So that they're not the association, but they are the promotion. So you can look at Jake Paul and a lot of the things that he's done in the past. So there are fighters who are in fact owners of promotions, you know, and who are negotiating and doing things. So I think it's all how you look at it. I don't know. I guess maybe it can work. I mean, I think in this situation, that probably, you know, if this is the case, maybe that has something to do with the Europeans being leery. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know. Previous leagues, I don't know how that worked. Like, I don't know how that was in WAL. I don't know if there was anything like that going on. I don't know that to be a fact. I've heard rumors and things, but don't know the details on anything like that. And you know, contracts. Most people are very tight. They keep things tight to the vest as far as their contracts. And I don't think there's anything in the contracts that say that the athletes can't talk about how much they make. However, it's a faux pas to speak about contracts sometimes, you know, of any sort. Like most business people do not divulge what their contract looks like in any capacity. So that's why I don't think that we'll ever get a straight answer on it or a yes or no on that.
And my question to you would be about this situation that, and people are asking that as well. If Engin Terzi sold his entire company, 100% of it, what is he complaining about it now? Let Robert run however he wants to run it or whoever he wants it to sell it to. What's the
Okay,
problem that Engin is having
so
right now?
I don't understand the structuring of this. However, what I do understand is that Angan kept the responsibility. Everybody's throwing out these words, lanes, like stay in your swim lane. You hear that? That's a term that's used at work all the time. Swim lanes and silos and all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, if Angan kept said lanes of matchmaking and rules and you know, whatever else, commentary and stuff. I don't know what that looks like if it doesn't come with a percentage stake. But he did say that he has something in some type of agreement that could be passed down to his son in case of death. So it sounds like to me there, whether it's percentage of the company or not, which it sounds like it's not, it is some form of stake and also some form of responsibility that comes along with that. I do believe that was an important thing for him to keep when the sale was made, because it is truly a fact that there are a lot of arm wrestlers, both East and West, that trust Angan to have their best interests in mind, especially when it comes to matchmaking. So Angan has always treated us as not employees, but as partners in an endeavor to move arm wrestling forward. And when we are offered matches, we are offered them. And that hasn't been that way in previous leagues. When you were offered a match at WAL, if you did not accept that match for whatever reason, whether you were honest or you lied or whatever, strong possibility you're not getting a call anymore. This league has not been like that. The athletes they're able and capable of saying, I don't like that matchup, or I would prefer this matchup. It is more of a negotiation where rationale can be sorted, and I believe it happens all the time. Personally, for me, I have always said, Angan, like, you make the matches. If you think this is what's best for my career in arm wrestling, I'll accept. But other people I know are not. They're not that reasonable and easy on it, which is why the matchmaking is a nightmare, and which is why I'm sure a lot of people had concern when the matchmaker went away, because booking a card, it can be very, very tricky. And I think it involves multi-step thinking. You have to be thinking 3 moves ahead. What if you got 2 guys? What if this guy wins? What's the next match? And the match after that? You got to think a lot of steps ahead. And I think a lot of trust was put into Angan. And I think a lot of his perspective on that was he didn't believe anybody else could have his perspective on the big picture of arm wrestling and also do right by the arm wrestlers. So I don't know what that agreement looks like, but it sounds like some form of stake without what we would call a percentage ownership for maybe voting or decision making. But that's assumption.
So, another question around this same subject would be, when all of the athletes are telling us that we will compete only with Engin, since Engin is gone, we are also gone. Did those athletes try to convince Engin not to sell East versus West? Did you ever make that call with Engin? Please don't sell it to anyone, you keep it. Or were you the
No,
one who was advising Engin
no,
to sell it so
no.
that he can
I,
focus
I
on his
wanted
health?
him. I wanted him to sell it. And like, when he put the whole thing out and said that was the plan, that was the plan. What he articulated to me, we had long discussions about it. I articulated my concern with the selling of the league to everyone was throwing around like, well, Dana White, right? Well, yeah, that's awesome, right? That's really awesome. But Dana White has a proven business model, and really, I'll say this too: like, when Angan says I have the athlete's best interest in mind, he does, and he forcefully has kind of paid us more than ultimately the business should support. So if Dana White comes in, guys, like, from an arm wrestler's perspective, we're not getting paid that much. Okay. Like, that's not, and that wasn't Angan's vision. And my concern was more like, arm wrestling is such a niche community. I would love to get to a point where we could actually bring in like a promoter like Dana White that could take it to a next level. But don't think for 1 second that the beautiful thing that we have going on right now wouldn't drastically change right away. Like, people say, well, he bought Slap. Like, why didn't he buy arm wrestling? Well, look, dude, I mean, Slap is a sideshow. Now it's awesome, right? But those guys, I believe, are making like $1,500, $2,000 to get their head slapped off without defending themselves. Like, it's like a weird comparison, and like, you can compare it to, let's think of the Rough and Rowdy promotion, who my buddy Justin competed at, right? Rough and Rowdy's 3 1-minute round sideshow boxing matches, right? It's incredibly violent, and the rules are weird, and you're running a bunch of risks to getting knocked out, like, on camera. Justin fought for a title match in that thing, and he was one of their most highly promoted people, and I believe he made $4,000. And those videos got millions of views, and that's awesome and everything. But like, they're making all this money. It was a pay-per-view. I think the pay-per-view was $49.99, and he made, as the main event, he made $4,000. So like, Angan was very sensitive on, we need to sell this when it is at a point where it can go to the next level, and we have to sell it to somebody who we trust. And when he presented Robert Baxter, Like, I mean, it's a no brainer. He's another guy who's super high integrity, and the arm wrestling community has accepted completely. And I do believe Robert Baxter to this very day has absolutely positive and pure intentions. So I don't like my loyalty is there to both of these guys, which is why I want them to come back together, and which is why I think they're going to come back together. And you heard it here first, so everybody just relax.
So what I'm getting now is Engin is having problems not with Robert Baxter, and I've already said that in the video, so nothing new being said here. Engin has problems with Devon Larratt and also Dexter Tang. When he has problems with Devon, he cannot say that he has problems with Dexter because Dexter is not an arm wrestler. Devon is an arm wrestler. Then in that case, he shouldn't have any problem with Devon. What would you have to say about that?
Have any problem with who?
With Dexter or Devon, like those two are conflicts. I've heard that he has problems with Dexter because Dexter is not an arm wrestler. He doesn't know arm wrestling. Engin's first condition was not to sell it to a non-arm wrestling guy, and now he also owns a minority stake. But if that was the problem, then he shouldn't be mad at Devon for owning anything. If Devon, in fact, owns anything in the East versus West, because he is an arm wrestler. So Engin has problems with both. How does he explain that?
I would assume that based on the fact that it was the assumption that it was being sold to one person and he was selling it directly to that person through that deal. Now, there's nothing that can be done once you ink a contract and say like, I want to sell this 100% to you. There's nothing to stop that person to go parse the league out. Then it just comes down to like, okay, was it a misunderstanding? Was it a miscommunication? Was it something that was perceived as uncouth? Those things are all secondary. So at this point, that's something that one could be upset about. After, from a pure business perspective, you could be upset about that. But ultimately, once you sell something, it's no longer yours to control. So if any of this did transpire officially, then does that maybe put some personal strain on a relationship? It could. If you feel like you were misled, that's understandable. But also, I don't think that Robert had any ill intentions in anything he was doing. So we all make decisions. We all make decisions in life and business, and we all want our businesses to succeed, right? So I can tell you from my own business experience that I have been a part of partnerships and business endeavors where we seem to make every wrong decision initially. Like if it was go right or go left, we should have went right 5 times. We went left every time. And the good news about that is as long as your business is still profitable, you now know that the right turn is left, and you move forward with that information. And business is often sloppy. I have businesses with personal friends. And does it get weird? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Some closest friends in my life. Yeah, it gets weird. It gets ugly. And then you call a town hall and you sit the hell down and you refocus and you reset and you meet a compromise and you move forward. And then you learn from what you did and try not to do it again. So unfortunately, this is a startup, and startup businesses and niche things are very challenging. The key is just don't go into red and go upside down. And I think we were at that point with King of the Table and nobody knew it. Like, let's look back at all that stuff. Everybody thought everything was great, because people were trying to keep the train on the tracks. And ultimately, Robert came and he saved the sinking ship. He didn't save the sinking ship to do anything to harm it. So that's why I believe that if the ship is starting to sink again, Robert's probably the guy plugging the hole. So we're going to come together and the stuff is going to wind up getting sorted out. Just hopefully no blood, like not enough. Hopefully we're not like bailing the water out forever. Pardon my analogy.
I was just wondering, just a funny thought that what happens if Engin tomorrow gets to know that Pradeep also owns a part in East versus West?
Oh,
He's gonna have a bad time.
yeah. Hey, listen, you better watch your back. I'm joking, but no, yeah. Listen, don't mess with that guy, man. Let him alone, man. He might have blood pressure stuff. Don't be teasing him.
Yeah. And I'll read both of the super chats. Before that, I wanted to ask one question about contracts. I just wanted to get one thing clear. Let's say Paulin was contracted by WL back in the day, and the contract said that you must arm wrestle 2 times a year, whoever we
Mhm.
put you up against, and you'll get a fixed salary even before you
Mhm.
compete, right?
Yeah.
But then you tell them I'm injured, I cannot compete. You only compete once that year. What happens
Mhm.
then? Do they deduct some money from your salary, or does that one match carry over to the next year? Next year you have to compete
It's
three
a great
times.
question. It's a great question. Quite often those. So I'll speak about the WL contracts because I don't care anymore. WL contracts wrote in all kinds of stuff. Everybody's contract was different. WL promised way more than they can deliver, and they defaulted on it. And then when things were happening, and they put people under 5 year contracts, and they defaulted on them during COVID, but yet they still tried to restrict certain people, which is weird. And the place that we're in now, East versus West, has already said we're not restricting people. We got these contracts from King of the Table, but I don't know. I'd have to go through mine again, but I think there might be something in there for injury, like injury clause. But my assumption, like if I was writing a contract and let's say I own the league and I'm putting contracts out there, I would put a clause in there for if you get injured,
Next year.
you, you just don't get paid. You get paid per match, and yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe if that person wants to negotiate like a rollover, but it depends on the set time of the contract. Depends on a lot of things, and I think that can be. I think each person would have the ability to redline their contract with requests, to support those situations. But quite often, these contracts um, are full of holes, and in this situation, I can tell you that these contracts are not nearly as restrictive as WAL. They wanted to own your name, image, your name, image, and likeness. Essentially, they were more like true athlete contracts, and they were very restrictive and for absolutely no reason. So it was goofy. It was much more controlling. These ones aren't really like that, and they were passed over from the previous organization.
I wanted to ask this because what happens tomorrow if Robert calls Vitali, who has said that he doesn't want to compete without Engin? He calls Vitali and tells him that you're a contracted athlete, you must come here and you must compete against Devon. And then Vitali says, sorry, boss, I just got injured, I cannot compete. What happens then?
If he gets, if say it again, so give me the scenario again.
If he just says that he got injured and he cannot compete, and by the time his injury is recovered, his contract has expired. I'm assuming in these cases nobody would pay the athletes in advance. That the payment
No,
will be made after the matches. Yeah.
yeah, that would be. I don't know why anyone would do that. Like I don't know why a business would structure it that way. You usually get paid for a set. You know, like it makes sense. Like WL contracts was like you're going to compete X amount of times. At each one of these times, you're going to pay X amount of money. You get appearance fee, you get a win bonus, and that's what it is moving forward. And if for whatever reason you can't compete like that, no competition, no pay. And it makes sense. You're doing a service or whatever, so you get paid for the service. Yeah, well, I lift weights, buddy, and it's shoulder day. Thank you for your constructive criticism.
Compliment. I'll read a couple of super chats. Old Moldy Scrotty. What kind? With 35 ZAR super chat. Thank you. Question for Paul. Do you ever feel like the refs didn't give you a fair shake in East versus West? We just
No,
discussed this topic, Paul. You have to tell the fans exactly what you told me.
what did I say? I don't remember.
I
About
also don't remember.
uh no, I like honestly like it's the most thankless job on planet Earth. It's terrible. It's horrific, and they get a hard time. And this last event, man, they had three refs, and they had all kind of stuff, man. Levon coming up and snatching Luke Polsher up. Like, listen, these guys are gonna they make mistakes. They're gonna make mistakes. Risto, I guess you said he has owned some mistakes and things like that. I don't blame these guys. I try and advocate for myself as much as I feel needed, But yeah, it's sometimes it's tough, But these guys are under incredible pressure, and with people who probably stress them a whole lot more than I do. I just want to get my pins called, but I'm good with it. I'm good with fussing if I think it's a pin.
Yeah. I don't want Paul to be in any trouble, but he told me today that he likes the European
Mm,
referees. He
I
likes to
do.
compete under them.
Yeah, I know.
That's what he told me.
Luke, don't get mad at me, Luke. Don't get mad at me, Luke. I like you too. Don't worry. But yeah, I actually prefer them. And the only reason I say that is I feel like there's a level of consistency. So some people might say, "Oh, that's consistently bad," or "It's consistently good." But I'll take anything that I can predict. You know what I mean? So the consistency has been good. I have in my head my top three referees. You know that I prefer, and I probably have my bottom three that I don't prefer. So yeah, but it is what it is, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I've had experience with certain guys more than once, and they've been consistent.
Yeah, I've already recorded a video about this subject before starting this live stream, and I discussed this with Paul as well before starting the live. So basically, the thing was, Christo came on a YouTube channel, a Bulgarian YouTube channel, and there he said that the second foul that was called on Kurdecha was in fact the first foul. He was just on one warning and not a foul. So that
Yeah,
was a mistake. And he said that he apologized to everyone afterwards,
yeah,
to Kurdecha, and now he's apologizing to the fans. He made a mistake. And then he also
yeah,
discussed the humerus in a downwards position, which clearly was. I was
yeah.
shouting to the referees through my screen that please call the foul on Devon. His
Well,
humerus is declining,
yeah, and
losing
here's the
position.
thing. Here's the thing. Everybody like will say like corner people don't matter. Like that's where your corner has to advocate. You know what I
So
mean?
you're
Like,
saying that since Jody was shouting so loud, the referee couldn't pay attention to the match?
no, no. I'm just saying. I'm saying like Kardashian needs to have a corner who's looking for certain things because he's not going to know in the moment. Because you're up there, you don't see nothing. You're seeing red, man. You got sweat dripping in your eyes, and you're seeing flashes of lights and cameras, and you can't in that moment of extreme adrenaline. You can't pick it up as a puller. I'm always amazed how some people can call an elbow foul on somebody else, and they're looking at somebody else's elbow while they're pulling. I'm like, wow, you're very perceptive. But yeah, it's that's a tough one right there. And I think the reason why I like Christo so much is because he admitted that. Like this guy.
Or maybe Engin told Risto to talk about it publicly so that Devon's win matters a little bit less. How
I
about
can
that
pretty much
conspiracy?
guarantee you that Angan is not currently talking to Christo right now. I'm pretty much sure Christo is not on the list of people that Angan's calling if he's calling anyone. So no, I
Why
don't think
is
so.
there like some beef between these two? Like why
No,
wouldn't he call him?
I just think with the current stuff that's going on right now, Angan is not worried about a downward humorist right now. I wouldn't be worried about that,
No,
especially when I walk.
because Engin is mad at Devon. So why not
Oh, I doubt it.
tell the fans that Devon's win wasn't actually a win? Kurdecha was about to turn the match around.
Well, if he would have done that, we'd see a video, wouldn't we? I mean, Engen usually puts things right out there, doesn't he? I don't think he's doing that. I can't imagine that at all. However, I do commend Christo because that's a big mistake, and I think that there's value in taking ownership of stuff. And little things get messed up in these events all the time. But it is the hardest stage in the world to referee on by far. It is the hardest job to do, and it's the hardest stage. So these guys are awesome as a whole. I really, I've said it from the beginning. I've had some questionable stuff happen in my matches, and I don't blame these guys at all, genuinely. Also, because I've been a referee at local tournaments, and by the time I'm done, like my personality has completely changed. The smiles are gone, and I'm ready to go home and drink a 12 pack. It's miserable. And they do that like that 10 match event that went 6 hours. They had three refs. There's only like six. There's no amount of money that I would do that for.
Yep. So I just wanted to say, and you said you're available for only 30 minutes. It's already been like almost
I
40
know.
minutes. So please let me know whenever you want to go. I'll
Well,
continue
you
for maybe
just
five
hit
ten
the
more
big
minutes.
top. Just hit the big topics we want to hit here. I know you're a man who prepares you probably have notes. Let me see your notes.
No, I didn't have any notes
Oh,
today.
I'm
I
I'm
I, I would
disappointed.
I would just like to say, Paul, that when I was saying stuff like, well, Engin did this for money, he sold it, and now he shouldn't be complaining. People tell me, and Engin always says this, that he never did it for the money. But my point here is, someone not caring about the money at all and still doing something for money, these things can coexist. And I can give my own example depending on in what context you are talking about. You can tell that Pradeep doesn't care about the money at all, that would be true. And you can even say that Pradeep is doing this YouTube thing just for money, that would also be true. So these things can coexist. I
Well,
know Engin
explain that.
doesn't care about the
Explain
money.
that to me. Explain that to me. What you just said from your perspective.
About Engin or myself?
No, yourself.
So I can give you many examples. Like I was talking about you about with you about the East versus West thing that I suggested Engin to upload some certain kind of videos,
Hmm.
highlight videos, and that would have taken me less than 1 hour, and the video guaranteed would have generated for me only at least $500-600. So for 1 hour of work, that would have given me 20 days of salary. And I
Hmm.
still chose not to do that because at that time I was not in good terms with Engin, and yet I suggested him that he should be uploading that video. He
Right.
should be
So
asking
so
Roman to
so
upload that video.
so there's two ways to look at the concept you're talking about, right? You're talking about like in that instance, your morals outweighed the money. So
Yep.
you made a decision that the morals outweighed the money. Um, but there's also scenarios where, like for me, arm wrestling, I've said it a million times, I'm not doing it for the money. That doesn't mean I don't accept the money. You know what I mean? But if given the opportunity, if someone came in right now and said, Paul, the only way for East versus West to survive is if you don't get paid anymore, I would say let's go pull, you know. But if you know you got a guy like Engen who is basically forcibly saying, I will not allow you to not be paid, I'm not going to argue with him about that. But I've suggested multiple times to cut my own pay to so I can do my part to help, like, you know, progress the league, you know. And I would probably feel better about that too, like I'm doing the right thing for the right reason. But if he says no, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna not accept the money either, you know. So it's a bonus, but it's not why I'm doing it. So like you can do, to me, ultimately at the end of the day, it's about doing the right thing for the right reasons. Kind of like a little catchphrase I try to live by, which obviously we don't always do that. But I do think that when you talk about like the moral aspect of it and the things that Engen and Robert have in the forefront of their mind, like yes, both of them were in an endeavor to make a business that was profitable, that then would be worth money. However, they were also trying to progress the sport. And I think if you had to ask which of those two things mattered more to them, I would think both of them would very genuinely say the progression of arm wrestling.
But sometimes I look at things logically too, not just from an emotional point of view. And the logic would
Sure.
tell me that there was Steve Kaplan who, despite the problems during COVID, never sold his arm wrestling league. There was Igor Mazurenko who was labeled as this greedy bastard. He, during the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and maybe 70% of his athletes were from those two countries. He never sold his league. And now you're telling me that the only guy who kept on threatening right from the third East versus West event, that the day he's in red, the day he doesn't break even at least, he's going to stop organizing. He said that after every single event, and the only guy who sold his league for money, and he's the only guy who didn't do it for money. Then the logic doesn't fit here.
Well, I mean, ultimately, what, like if you're saying if I go into the red, I'm not going to do it anymore, is different from selling it. And then also looking at like, okay, why was it sold and who was it sold to? Will the dream continue? So those are also variables in the selling. So if you know if you had posed the same scenario to me and Engen had sold the league to Steve Kaplan, who's a sheer businessman who has no interest really in moving arm wrestling forward because he's not a stake in it, he's not an arm wrestler, he's not part of the community, then I would then question. But because it was sold to Robert Baxter and all the efforts were put in place to continue to keep the train on the tracks, um, it doesn't really fit. You know what I mean? So saying I'm going to walk away because I'm not going to lose my house on this, it doesn't make it like, you know, of course, if you're doing a business and it becomes not no longer profitable, number one, if it's not profitable, how can you sell it? And number two, if it's so much upside down that you can't move forward, you're forced to walk away from it.
But I lot of businesses, Paul. In the initial years, you said you're yourself involved in businesses. In the
Mm-hmm.
initial years, most of the businesses are in red, very rarely. And Engin
For
did that.
sure.
He was in the green right from the beginning. But if every person started thinking that way, as soon as it goes in red, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to stop
Absolutely.
organizing.
Part of your
Doesn't work that way.
part of your business proposal or your business plan that you put out there usually has a 2 or 3 year period where you're expected to reinvest any profits, or potentially go or have like a safe hold of money for when things are not profitable. That's expected. So, I mean, that's a part of it. I mean, if you're able to be in the green your first year, that's awesome. You know, but it's evidenced by how much Hagen kept rolling that money over and continuing to try and up the level of everything from the merchandise, the production to all that stuff, that he was reinvesting in the progression.
So, Weld Mishref with the biggest super chat of the night. It is so obvious, like a clear sky, Devon Shaw behind all this mess. Robert is so weak to let an athlete control such things, disappointing and disgusting. Paul, I've heard things like Robert is such a nice guy, but that
Yes.
also makes him have a weak personality. He cannot confront people like Devon. Is that true? Or not just Devon, but anyone else who may try to, let's say, sway him towards a certain direction where he shouldn't be going. But if that
I've
was true, he
never
wouldn't be a successful businessman.
yes, I have never been able to sway him in anything. And I've only tried a couple times for very, very small things. But I don't think that from a business perspective, I don't think he's going to be swayed against his better judgment to do things that he believes are wrong. So let me say that. Now, his personality is very soft spoken. So in a room of people with big personalities, he's often going to be quiet, you know. But a lot of times the quietest person in the room is the smartest. So I do believe that um, it Robert's personality is what allows him to be able to work with Engin. Engin's personality causes clashes with other personalities that are similar. So when you look at the dynamic and everything, and Engin and I have a wonderful relationship, and I've explained this to you before. Engin is essentially the same person as my father-in-law. My wife and I laugh about it. And my father-in-law is like the person. I love this guy. He's like he is my father. I love him. He does. I have to, if I have an opinion or a thing that I need him to get on with, I have to be able to have a bullet point presentation with all the pros and the cons and proof that the pros outweigh the cons. And then he's still going to tell me I'm wrong. And then he's going to go back and think about it. And he's going to come back and say, okay, let's do it. Like, so there's a way, there's a personality type that can work with any other personality type. So I think sometimes personalities don't mix, and sometimes it takes the right personalities to keep things going too. And I can talk about my own business endeavors and stuff that I've had with friends. And sadly, I usually wind up in the exact same role that I'm in right now, trying to keep the peace, and trying to make certain personalities work together. But ultimately, it can be done.
And just one final super chat, Paul, and then I'll
What do we got?
let you go. I'm a wrestling fan. I've followed this great sport for 25 years. Before TV days, a league can't survive without global unity. Paul Linn attitude needed by all involved.
Yeah, I can't change people's attitude, right? We can't change other people's attitudes. All we can do is bring an energy that is conducive to those things. We can't change perspectives. We can't change personalities. I think that's the biggest flaw that we make in life, like in relationships, is thinking that people are going to change. People are fundamentally who they are, right? It doesn't mean that their behavior can't change, but a lot of times that who people are can be influenced by the energy around them. So that's why it's so important with these assumptions, and we're going into this stuff. We all love arm wrestling, right? We all watch the pay-per-views. If you're watching this damn live feed right now with us two clowns, you clearly love arm wrestling. So, like, ultimately, rather than like making assumptions, pointing fingers, picking a side, if that energy was put more into like, all right, how do we resolve this? Is there a part that we can play as the public to help resolve this? Because I do think that Robert and Engen, they read comments, man. And if the community is kind of united and the community says, hey, guys, put your differences away, like Engen, Dexter, whoever, Devin, get in a room, hash it out, because we want you to. Maybe you don't want to, but we're asking you to because we're the consumer, and we're the people who are invested in whatever capacity that we are. And I think people who are driven for a greater good will hear that cry. So that's kind of the thing that I think we're trying to do. Look, I can tell you right now, Neil and Ryan Bowen being willing to do the fix together proves, because those guys were going to kill each other, like physically, that thing was ugly. So if those guys feel passionate enough that they're willing to chop it up and do something for the greater good, then anybody can.
Yep.
All right,
Thanks,
Pradeep, man,
brother.
I got to get out of here. I got to go get my son. Hey, Pradeep, thanks for letting me come on. All right, keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, so I don't always agree with you, but we always talk it over, don't we?
Yeah,
And I pretty much
sure.
tell you every time that you say something I disagree with it, but it's always in a constructive capacity. So if you and I can do that with how much of a weirdo that you are, we all can do
Yeah. So you watched all of my videos. Would you say that the suggestions or guesses that I've made about this situation, combining all of this information, I've been correct at least 70%?
The early on, like the early ones at the beginning of this problem.
Yeah, yeah. In the past couple of days.
Well, I think I'll tell you this, and this is my constructive criticism. Your early videos on this topic came off as some of your most emotionally driven ones. They were the least like news. So they were the least about facts. They were more about assumptions. Now, were some of your assumptions on pace? Sure. You follow this thing closer than anybody. You watch more videos, you read more posts than anybody. So, like, for anybody to say that you're not read up, that's ridiculous. You're the most read up person ever, probably. And you make it a career, and you do it for the most part with a very professional approach, how you do your videos and how you report. I will say early on in this, I felt like we were starting to look more like a tabloid than a news outlet. Uh, so, but now I think we're reeling things back as more information comes out.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with what you said, 100% right. But even for that, I'll like to give an excuse, and the excuse is if Engin knows that what happened behind the scenes, if Engin knows that Devon is a part of it, if Engin knows that he doesn't like Dexter or whatever the problem is, if everyone knows whatever is happening and they choose to talk in riddles, they don't want to let the information out, and yet they want to let the information out by talking in riddles, then we are going to just interpret
Oh, I
truth
know,
to the best of our
I know,
abilities.
I know.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, what I'll be frank about this. I don't like how this was released. You know, in my opinion, I don't think it was well thought through. Um, Regardless of how it got out, was it going to get out? Sure. But the way it did, it left a lot of questions and a lot of weirdness. And again, I'm not even going to point the finger at anybody for doing that, because however it transpired, it did. But it led to a lot of this because it left for this time period with gray area where even people who were closely involved did not have a lot of answers. So of course it lessened when information has to be done with one of two things: either completely withheld or completely released. When there are holes and pieces, everyone else fills in the blank.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for
All
joining.
right, buddy. Hey guys, thanks for coming and listening to us. I appreciate you. I'm gonna go upload a video right now. Pradeep's stealing my thunder. He told me I don't upload enough, and here I'm making videos. I'm waiting for him to upload, and Pradeep says, "Get over here and do this live, and let's talk about the same stuff." But hey, Pradeep,
And and
I'm
and people
Pradeep.
and people.
I got a mic too. How about that? I got a mic because
That's great. That's great.
you were
And
telling me
and
I had my air conditioner on in my car, so I took care of that.
that wasn't about you. That wasn't about you. And people
Definitely
are
was.
asking Paul's military press PR. Ask that in the comment section of Paul's recent video. He'll answer you there. The one which gives me
PR.
the
I
PR.
don't do a PR, but I've done 315 for 5.
Okay.
See you
Thanks, brother.
guys.
Bye. Bye.
Take care.
Pradeep, your mic is a bit soft. Yeah, I've turned up the volume completely. Maybe it's the software or something. The software did give me an option to go up to 200%, and I'm currently at 200%, so still it was a problem. Guys, I hope you liked the stream. A little bit we went off topic every now and then, and I realized many people mentioned that in the comment. I read maybe 2, 3 comments that the Brian Shaw topic was kind of unnecessary, diverted us from the main subject, and I agree with that. So I'm learning because I usually do live streams solo. Whenever I used to do lots and lots of interviews, and people really used to appreciate that. Even if you go to the comment section under those videos, you'll see people writing that this is the best John Brzezinski interview we have ever seen. This is the best Devon Lett interview we have ever seen. Those comments are there, but those were not live. This live thing is a little bit difficult. I'm going to tell you that because you usually don't prepare for a live stream interview because the comments are there, the conversation flows, and if you don't have anything to talk about, you can just answer the questions mentioned there. So it's a little bit different, and I haven't really done that many live streams with people, with someone else. I usually do them alone. So yeah, I'm also still learning how not to divert topics. Thank you guys. You guys were awesome. I'm about to end this live stream in maybe 3 minutes from now. 59:50 looks good. Volume is same as always to me. Okay, that's interesting. After Devon's King's move, big super chat. Thank you, sir. JR55AMG. As for us fans, it's none of our business who is in clash with whom in a business context. This should have been settled behind closed doors and not been made public. I hope all settles for the best. And this made me, this super chat, thank you brother, made me think about another subject. As you just mentioned, as we fans, we don't care about it. So now me being, I've said it dozens of times, Hermes Gasparini is my favorite arm wrestler. And now I want Hermes to compete. And now he's out there openly saying he's not going to compete unless it is with Engin Terzi. Does that mean he doesn't care about the fans? You care about that one person who was treating you well, who is the most important person in the arm wrestling world, Engin Terzi. I agree with that. But what about the fans who want to see you? He was like, if I have to take 1 year break, I am going to take 1 year break. Okay, you're showing your respect to Engin Terzi, and you're standing up for the right thing, or at least you believe it is the right thing. Then what about us fans who want to see you compete? You don't care about us at all. This is one person that you don't like, and this is one person that you do like. You're staying with him, and since he cannot organize now, you won't compete. So the fans aren't even in the picture. If we talk about who's making arm wrestling bigger, it's primarily the fans. It's not even Engin Terzi, the fans. And the athletes, whoever have said we are not going to compete, the contracted athletes whose matches are confirmed. And initially, Vitali was also saying that he's not going to compete. Now he is. We can see that. So, is it a fair assumption to think that these athletes, they're not caring about us fans? What about us fans? You should be asking them. DM those arm wrestlers, whoever have said that. Just politely, I would request you guys. 500 people are watching. So, guys like Kalina and Ivan Matushenko, Petro Margarinth, Hermes Gasparini, and who else we have? My favorite, one of my favorite arm wrestlers, Kamil Jablonski. People hate that guy. I absolutely love him. Just DM these guys. Ask them, bro. I know you chose the right side. I'm supporting you, but what about us fans? We want to see you compete. You don't care about us? You just said I won't be competing. What about us fans? That's a very, I never thought about it like that. Never until I saw where did that go? This chat. It made me think about that. I'll probably upload a separate video about this subject, unedited, just me speaking. That would be good. Thank you. Great point, brother. Great point. Then Glenn Peters, and you're from India. How are you in India, Glenn? Engin has a huge ego. He is very hard to work with. I can tell you that Engin is almost impossible to work with. You are bragging. Bragging about what? Okay. Great point. You won't. I won't what? What did I miss in the chat? Old moldy Scotty, another super chat. Engin not telling the athletes to still do what they love and get paid for it by still competing at East versus West also speaks volumes. Yep. I hope it was like that. I think Engin has asked those guys to make those posts. So is he really allowing them to compete? And if someone goes against Engin and competes at East versus West, will he be allowed if Engin creates a new arm wrestling league? I'm not entirely sure about that. We got another super chat before GTA 6. Arm wrestling experiment. Arm wrestling doesn't need to grow. PLN 50. So that's a good super chat. Thank you, brother. Good amount of money, I would say. Arm wrestling doesn't need to grow. It needs to stay rooted in small communities and continue building toward big enough events. We don't need weirdos and rats for the sake of growing the sport. Okay. Strong, powerful words, but again, I wish you were more specific what you were talking about arm wrestling experiment. But anyways, thanks for the super chat. An interesting concept. Usually everyone says we need to go mainstream, we need to grow a lot as fast as possible, and you're saying somewhat different thing, precisely as AAA is saying. Did I miss any super chat? I read that. Engin not telling the athletes, read that too. Huge ego, fans. Yep, I've gone through everything. So thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Apologize for not reading all the chat. It's literally impossible when that many people are watching the stream and supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I'll see you again. Bye. And by the way, I'll talk about it some other time. There